Hi! Today I'm gonna explain a bit of background and functionality of Chip, one of the new machines in the Analog Rytm 1.70 OS. I'm also going to show a few use cases on how to make some classic SID-style chiptune sounds, like these. Chip is a machine inspired by how sounds and music was created on home computers from the 80s, and specifically Commodore 64 with its SID chip. That chip has since been used in several synthesizers as well, like the Elektron SID station back in 1998. Chip is by no means a SID emulation, but can do some similar things, and thanks to the Analog Rytm voice structure it also can do some things that couldn't be done at the time. Worth noting is that it's doing most of this with pure analog waveforms. SID only had 3 monophonic channels, and other home computers such as the ZX Spectrum had even less, which meant that you were quite limited if you wanted both bass, lead, drums as well as chords. So what was discovered was that if you play an arpeggio, but increase it to a high speed, it will appear as a chord, while only using one of the channels. A pioneer of this method was the British-American composer Martin Galway. The sound parameters on the Commodore 64 were often updated at the same speed as the refresh rate of the TV screen. In Europe, which had the PAL system, it was 50 times per second, or 50 Hz, while US used NTSC at 60 Hz. This meant that the arpeggio would also play back using that speed, or divisions of it, creating a characteristic sound of its own. But to make this sound even more interesting, not only the actual notes were updated at this rate, also the waveform itself could be updated on each of these arpeggio slices, and by that create various percussive sounds. We'll show how to make these later on. With this as a base, let's explain the parameters. Inside Chip, up to 4 notes will arpeggiate in a cycle. The first note will be the regular trig note, and then 3 notes spread out by the offset 2, 3 and 4 parameters. The root is here a C3, and with these offsets plus 3, 7 and 10, it will create a C minor 7th chord. If you want a 3-note chord, you could set offset 4 to 0. Similarly, setting offsets 3 to 0 would produce a 2-note chord. And lastly, setting offset 2 to 0 will only play the waveform as a monophonic synth voice. More on the waveforms later on. Speed sets the arpeggiator rate. On the left side, the arpeggio will be synced to the tempo as note divisions, while on the right side it will be set to certain fixed Hertz values. This will go up to 480, which can create some almost ring mod-like effects when using the offsets. After this comes single shots, which will only play the arpeggio once at some selected fixed Hertz, useful for making the percussive sounds shown earlier. Decay sets the decay time, but there's also of course a separate amp envelope to shape the sound. Tune sets the overall tuning, and level, well, sets the level. Lastly, waveform selects one of the waveforms, and there are plenty to choose from. They are grouped in some sections, where it starts with some pure analog waveforms, including an analog square wave, which was previously not available on Rytm. Also a digital pitched noise in the style of the SID. After this come Anim 1 to 4, which are animated waveforms, which will live its own life a bit, as they are based on ring modulation of analog waves. Anim 5 will switch between some analog waveforms on every arpeggio slice. After these come two digital automatic PWM waves, which moves the pulse width on every slice. PWM Plus starts at 50%, whereas PWM Minus starts at 10. It effectively becomes an extra LFO for PWM. Next are some table-based waveforms, which will be explained more in detail later on. And lastly, there is the raw digital pulse wave with selectable width from 1 to 99. Side chip can be placed on tracks 1 to 4, but as track 3 and 4 are sharing the same physical voice, you can have up to 3 voices at the same time, which is actually the same limitations as a SID chip had. To show a bit on how the engine can sound as a basic chiptune synth, I will now play a short snippet. Track 1 has a bass and a little snare, which sounds like this. If you can nail the original song and from which game this arrangement comes, please let me know in the comments. Okay, let's go. Got a little carried away there, I think. Now it's time to explain more about the table-based waveforms I talked about earlier. A really defining piece of the SID sound was to swap out waveforms on every arpeggiator step. Choosing the right ones and pitches will create the typical chiptune drum sound. Most of these work best in the single-shot arpeggio mode, where it only plays the arpeggio once. But here I will slow it down so we can hear what's going on. The waveform that starts with a dot, like this one, dot try, means that it will start off with just a tiny noise attack before the selected waveform. In this case, the analog triangle comes in. That can create a snappy attack for many sounds. The next one is plus try, which will play a noise at the first slice and then the triangle. After this, try plus, which plays one slice of triangle, one slice of noise, and then triangle all the way. Lastly, try star will play one slice of triangle, two slices of noise, and then continue with the triangle. The same table exists for the analog square as well as sawtooth. The final three tables all start with a noise snap for the attack, but then continues with different waveforms per step. Table 1 has two slices of square and then continues with noise. Table 2 has one triangle, one square, and then noise. Finally, table 3 has two slices of square followed by triangle. To describe these in their context, I'm going to show a few examples of how they're made. And all of these are using the single shot mode in 50 Hz. First, this kick. It is using table 3 to get the noise snap, some square waves for the attack, and then triangle for the body. As you can see, the offsets are dropping from -6 to -17 to get this pitch drop. Then the snare. It is using table 1 to get the noise snap, followed by 2 squares with a small pitch rise, and then when the noise kicks in, the pitch is raised 2 octaves. To get this noise tail, I placed a free-running LFO which modulates the offset 4 parameter. This tom drum is using dot tri for the attack and then a short pitch fall of triangle. You can see that I set offset 4 to 0, meaning it will stop and hold the offset 3 pitch. Finally, a typical Rob Hubbard tom, similar to the one used in the game Commando. It is using square star to get the initial square hit, followed by 2 noise slices, and then continues with the square. And to get the final pitch drop, I'm using single shot LFO on offset 4 with a ramp down. Let's end this demo with a segment where I try to convert a section from an existing C64 tune. And just like many tunes like this, they change sounds on every step, which works fine on the Analog Rytm thanks to parameter and sound locking. 2 of the tracks are using the filter, and to simulate the SID, which only had 1, I've used the exact same setting on both of them. So, here comes a bit of a song from 2021 by Mutetus, only $299.99. And this update is free, by the way. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching.